Okay, so this video is the first chapter interview of the book with Timmy, and we're going to go from here. So let's. I know it doesn't come naturally to you, but it's kind of fun.
Well,
Get
it's going
pushy.
to challenge me. I mean, it's definitely going to make me grow as a person. So. Okay.
So we're starting with the premise of what was going through my mind when I was this person. Who was I? So I'll call these up, but then we're going to stick to a hard stop, and let's at 11 o'clock we're going to see where we are, and then plan on going a little beyond that, and then hopefully you'll have enough. So you want me to read this, or you want to read this?
Well, one of the things, the first question I think, for the book's sake, it is what do you remember from what the other people have written, what you liked or did you not? You know what I mean?
No. I mean, I really like Tom's energy, and in his intro, like the transparency, the in your face, the personality. Like I'm not even writing this book myself. Kind of the honesty, the humor, the irreverence. Like all of that really resonated. I also like Stacy's first chapter. Where I was in Time magazine. It told a story. It was compelling. You like that guy. So I think if we can combine those two, and the biggest problem is finding what is, why does someone read it? What is the arc? Maybe we're just going to get there.
Right. I mean, that's part of it, and let's have a goal. But it might go like we. I asked you, the purpose of the work. Do you want to inspire people to aspire to any goal, or is it to business success in particular? Do you even know?
I mean, the purpose of the book is quite honestly to expose me as the brand ambassador to more people.
Right.
So,
what's the best way to?
What's the best story to do that? Is it the inspirational book? The purpose is to, but like most things I've done, and everything I've attempted to do, with very few exceptions, I've been able to achieve, I'm really nervous about this in particular because, I want this to be a bestseller.
Yeah.
I just want it to be, I think when I watch the Biography Channel reviews on CNBC. My story is more compelling. It's more interesting, or it's at least as interesting.
Yeah.
And what are the elements about it that make it as interesting? And how do you key in on that? Because SCOTTeVEST unto itself doesn't have the name of Netflix or Zappos or something that is going to say, I want to read about how Zappos was formed.
Right.
It's gonna have to be the writing and the stories within the book, that are going to get the recognition. And then people are going to get interested in Scott. It's sort of reverse.
Yeah,
like when
a
Howard
little
Schultz,
bit. Yeah,
when
you have
Howard,
this platform, but yeah.
When Howard Schultz writes a book, because he's at Starbucks, he's immediately going to get on a tour. People are going to be curious. I want to do it reverse.
Right. Make it a good, compelling book.
That then people say, oh, that's the platform that enables them to do that.
Good. So I think it sounds like we need that we're going to be doing a combination of all these. But ultimately inspire people to aspire to any goal and advertise your company
But it can't be that goofy, inspirational. Like,
no. I think I'll use some of that as models of how they capture people into that. But we don't want to go into the airy-fairy, capture the universe.
Yeah,
but it's grit.
I'm not a motivational. It's grit. It's gritty. It's like I didn't want to practice law, and I forced it through, and I made something happen. I mean, I don't believe in luck. I think you make your own luck. I haven't. Someone could look at me and say, "Wow, you've been lucky." Bullshit.
Well, like last night.
What?
I'm emailing you at like 10:30. I'm like, okay, now I know why you do well because you just don't ever stop.
I never stop.
And Laura comes here at 3.
Yeah.
You know, I mean that, and so.
And I'd like Laura to be a character in this book
Yeah,
too.
I definitely agree because one of the things I read that really touched me, that somebody, I don't remember who wrote it, but was when you were talking about Laura and the climbing over the boxes and you guys, she was always supporting you. So that it's touching and we like that, as just people. So we definitely have to get that in there.
And if I was lucky at all, it was marrying Laura. That's the
See
only.
that? I'm such a sucker for
Because
that.
I had no expectation. Laura and I often talk that had I married who I was supposed to marry,
Who are you supposed to marry?
some Jewish girl wanted 3 children and wanted to be married to a partner at a law firm.
I need to hear this
and,
story. I don't know if you want to tell it now, but I think that might. I think it's.
It's the alternate me. I mean, it's what it's what has made me. I could have gone that. And Laura's the game changer.
I wonder if the alternate me is like the opening, because people go, well, so then if that wasn't who he ended up being, who did he? You know what I mean? It's a
Who was I supposed to be?
Who were you supposed to be?
I don't know. I mean, I
But
do know. I can picture him. I mean, he's a partner at a law firm. He's miserable. He's fat. He's living in the suburbs. He's got 3 whiny children and a wife that shops too much. And so
I love that. I think that I want to start with that. I mean, probably
that's
right
right.
now.
And Laura is, and it's just, that's a touching story. That basic, and it's true. I mean, basically, if we can say, here's an entrepreneur, a husband and wife team that is so perfectly matched insofar as the things I do well, she has no interest in. The things she does well, I have no interest in. She wants to be behind the scenes. I'm better in front. I mean, it's just the whole picture of how that all kind of came together and how we worked together. I mean,
I think that's an excellent start for where we should start writing. And I love the alternate me because it's creative and funny. I mean, that's funny.
Yeah. And maybe you come back to it, and there are variations throughout stories that. Okay, what would the alternate me be doing right now? I did really well in law school, and when I was in law school, when I first started, I wanted to specialize in attorney malpractice. So I'm sharing with my fellow students, and all this is obviously being recorded in 2 manners, so who knows, don't pick it up, you'll be able to come back. But I'm sharing with my fellow students that, when I grow up, I want to sue you. I wasn't making a lot of friends, because, so unfortunately I did so well in law school that, I was presented with these golden handcuffs that come out of law school at age 27 or so, or 5, I forgot, that, my mom was dying, and there was a whole bunch of stories around her influence that need to come through in some fashion, and I was offered this job in the day, $68,000 a year. Today it's good money. I mean, and as a result, I was miserable just, and constantly looking for an opportunity to do something like this. So.
Yeah. And then, so the personal story, where did that come in as far as who planned that this is the person you were supposed to marry? I mean, was it just somebody you met, or was it an expectation in the family, or?
It's just,
kind of more of a, I mean,
societal, being growing up Jewish, you marry Jewish, and you have, and within a couple of years you have children, and then you're a lawyer.
On having creating an actual person in a scenario that you were going, do you know what I mean? That was planned, and then you know what I mean, making it a story, even if it's just based on.
You can use those sort of fictional characters that I can sort of, the angel devil kind of relate to, as you see fit. These are tools to tell a story.
I'll try it and see. We'll see if we like it.
I mean, I'm open to that. I want to do something unique. I want to, we can bend the truth a little bit, so long as the core of it is true. But, if it helps to tell a story, to go into, in effect, dream sequences, and it is true. I often have wondered what ifs, and all along the way. I mean, when I founded SCOTTeVEST initially, and there are notes from some of these conversations that other writers
that we have.
that-
I've seen them, yeah.
and there are some that maybe you haven't seen, but
Okay.
like when I started SCOTTeVEST, I was at my lowest point ever. I mean, I was confused. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I was working for this .com, and I hated my boss with a passion. He was pompous. He wouldn't let me do any of my marketing ideas. Wanted to consider me a lawyer. I was actually seeing a psychiatrist, talking about what I wanted to be when I grew up, and like reverting to hypnosis psychiatry to just to figure it all out. And it was in my psychiatrist's office that I got a call from Hammaker Schlemmer, saying they wanted my vest. It was at that moment that I left and said okay. And then Laura was away. She was here in Sun Valley. And when I got that call, she was skiing with her mother here. And I was at my lowest point at that moment. And then there were a series of interviews that I went through that. With at the time one of the most prestigious businessmen in Chicago, that I was sitting in that waiting room waiting to meet with him as to be his general counsel, and read an article in the Wall Street Journal. I was sitting there, I'll never forget, that says, men and their gadgets and how many they have, and so all these ideas. As it turned out, that guy ended up going to jail, and I would have been his lawyer. I may have been there with him, So I mean, there's so many. So I don't know where to begin.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I mean, if you want to
Let's
start,
go through these a little bit, and you can
Okay.
tell me the stuff you want to think more about, and the stuff you're just like, oh, that's stupid.
Okay.
Let's not even go there. I mean, they're very kind of just general
some things to
questions.
ponder at your convenience. You want them around somewhere, but redundant, interesting, in a different way to elicit a different response. Respond to them in random, unorganized fashion. What is the purpose of this work? So we talked about that. Inspire people to aspire to any goal. I mean, I'd like people that would really make me feel good if they walked away and they felt like it enabled people to leave their miserable job and do those things. But I want them to be entertained when reading, because if they're not, I don't like to read a lot. I'll only read things if I
We got to
entertained.
keep that grit and
Yeah.
sense of humor, and
Business success in particular. No, not necessarily business success, but entrepreneurial lessons. Yes. I don't know about advertise. Yes, advertise the company. I mean, it's expose the company.
Yes,
it's not
yes.
use me as a platform to expose the company. What do you think is the driving force, right, of your life? I.e., rags to riches story, maybe a central theme of your life has been the love of your wife, approval of your mom and dad, showing those mean kids, showing those mean.
like I'll show you,
What's the driving force? I mean, it's changed at different portions of my life. For a large portion of my life, it was showing my dad that I'm worthy. I'm worthy of his love. I never earned that. He ended up dying, writing me out of his will and his life, and in one sentence in the definitional section of his will, saying, "I, Robert Jordan, having 3 children, Laura, Scott, and Cynthia, for purposes of this agreement, my children shall mean Linda and Cynthia." I mean, to get but it was only at that moment after he died when I no longer had to feel like, God, is this enough for him? Maybe he's all, that I think I really came out, and it was shortly after I moved here, and that he died, and I learned about it when I was at the Consumer Electronics Show, and I'll never forget. I didn't have anyone, even someone who I considered a friend at the time, named Michael Hess. He was there, and I was hoping to at least spend some time with Michael, and he didn't. I spent time with a random reporter. I took him out for dinner, and we just talked about pretty much anything. But so I think that the approval of my father, which was never coming.
and if you're comfortable talking about that at some time, that might come in. You know what I mean? It might be interesting.
This is
to
a
talk about.
very unique relationship. I'm going to be. I mean, I'm comfortable talking about anything. I want this book to write it as you feel it, and then we can edit it later.
Right.
Psychiatrist and all things are open. It's a very personal relationship that we're going to be having as a result. So I need it to be very confidential.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
so approval. My mom died when I was in law school, and so I always, I know she'd be real proud of me now, and so so I don't know if I've answered. What's the
How
driving?
successful were you in high school, and both maybe emotionally and academically?
I'm moderately. I set a goal for myself in high school that I would get graduate with a B average, and I graduated with a 3.0 average, and I would manipulate. I would game it. So I spent more time trying to ensure. You know how hard it is to graduate. 3.0. Exactly. I mean, it was really.
It's really interesting. So it was like this little teeny target.
Yeah.
And you were like,
I might have been within a couple percentages higher or lower, and I would work just hard enough just to do that. And
why? Where did that plan come from?
Because I don't really. I'm not sure.
It's almost like you just wanted to challenge yourself because you knew you could get a 4.0.
I didn't know that.
You did.
See, until I went to law school. I really. I wasn't sure. I knew I was a smart kid.
So you're testing stuff out.
Yeah, it was only through law school where I really tried my hardest to do my best and see what would happen. And what happened was I graduated number 6 in my class, and which isn't easy to do in law school.
No. Yeah.
Having never read a case either. I just paid attention in class.
Yeah,
I'm very communicative. And who would have the balls to go into a class in law school, which is very intimidating, the Socratic method, and without having read the cases that were required the assignment the day before, I was the biggest talker in class, which is ridiculous. I mean, I was the guy that either people would hate because he always seemed to be the smartest guy in class, that they had only known that I had never read the case, and I learned verbally, and I learned by listening to the discussions.
Yeah.
So what? How did I do? I was the guy who was both the druggie and the prep. I crossed lines. I didn't have high self-esteem of myself, but not super low. I had a girlfriend for most of high school. I believe we had a perfect family, only to discover that we didn't.
Yeah. When did you start realizing that, do you think?
Oh my God, I don't know.
Because I know that feeling. I had the same sort of when I was 21. I'm like, wait a minute, and you're like, wait.
Yeah, probably. When I started doing some comparisons, I don't talk to my sisters now, even still, so that's frustrating, So, these are a lot of, there's a lot to so what's the driving force? At different parts, a lot of it was my dad. A lot of it, was to try to gain his respect and his love, and you would think if you looked at me objectively, there'd be nothing to fight for.
Right.
On paper, but he was jealous of me, and I didn't know that. He was jealous of the affection my mother would show towards me because he thought it was, from him, and he actually said things to me. I resent you for the opportunities that I've afforded you that were not afforded to me. Well, how fucked up is that?
Yeah.
Look, So there's a lot going on there, and I don't know where that all fits.
But it's also interesting that he could voice that, he could say that.
He said that in the letter.
But it actually helps you understand him better and realize it's not you, right?
Yeah, but it didn't.
It didn't feel that way.
No, it didn't.
Yeah.
And it was later in life, but it's helped to look back, and we have a series of letters that we wrote back and forth to each other that are hateful and harmful, and you can ultimately, if you find it helpful in your research, to read them. So I don't. We had a working title at one point. After he died, I was tempted to write a book called "In Spite of My Dad." I succeeded in spite of my dad, or I succeeded to spite my dad. You can argue that I called.
Okay.
So there was a really interesting point in that I succeeded in spite of. Yeah, so despite, there's a lot of father-son, a lot of things that, it's almost a daddy dearest book, potentially. I mean, there's a book in and of itself.
I think
there.
we want to be, like you want to be entertaining and you're funny and, so maybe we go lighter, but this can be the depth that behind it, like we always have it in our back pocket, like if.
But it can be the second book that we write. I mean,
sure.
We want the first book to expose, but, there's more than one book in it.
Yeah, for sure. And even if we, find ours at this one, we start writing, it's getting a little light and fluffy, we can go, well, we got to make him real and have these,
absolutely.
what I mean? So we'll find it, but so good. That's good.
Oh, so after my father died, I was talking to my sister a little bit, and I finally asked how much money he had, because everything was about money to my father, and everything was measured in money, and I asked my sister, I said, so after all this, what was the old man worth? And I wasn't privy to this, and she told me a figure, and she said, I think the figure she said was $3 million a month. But that's not extraordinarily freaking wealthy in today's day and age by any means. That's not. I mean, this is a man who gave the aura of just like $30-40 million worth of wealth, and living here, that's not even extra, but that's good. That's solid money.
Right.
So then it occurred to me that my sister's a pathological liar. That she probably was lying about that, and so I called up for lack of a better term, my stepmother, his wife, who she hated my father, unbeknownst to me until he died. She stayed with him for the money as well as him. And this is kind of telling in terms of what drives me. I said, listen, I need to know what my father was worth. She said, why do you need to know? I said, I need to know when I beat him. I love
now that's gotta be it.
I mean, I need to know the numbers, so when I'm pretty convinced, although it's not liquid, that whatever we're building here, it's in excess at a much younger age. But so you want to know what drives me? That's kind of now what drives me. This is important because what drives me now is completely different. It's you. It's Liz. Watching Liz mature into she's a dynamo and take. Because if I stopped today and I sold, we'd be fine for the rest of our life. So now I have to find what's next. We don't have children. Charity, I want to give a lot of money to charity. Ultimately, all our money is going to charity. I want to do it while I'm living. I want to have fun. I want to engage. I want to inspire. I want to take someone like Liz and give her a job that she would never have an opportunity in this town to do. And John, and you to write a book and do.
That's
this
really
is
awesome. That's very cool. I love that.
And I mean it.
Yeah,
I can benefit from it too, and everyone else. So I want to nurture. I want to,
That's really interesting. Because I think that's very lacking in the world, and I've noticed it. People, mentors.
I didn't have one.
Didn't you want one? Wouldn't it be
yes,
great?
Hap is the
luckily
closest
it worked
thing
out
that I've
for you.
had. And Hap, you might want to spend 10 minutes. I want to
I'd
interview
love to, yeah.
because Hap knows me really, really well. I pull him aside. He's written several books and say, I'm writing this book for Scott. You mean a lot to him, and there's going to be an opportunity. I want to, and do it via Skype and hopefully record it.
Okay. Yeah, I had at one point wanted to, I thought if I ever get wealthy, I want to start a charity that mentors people. I don't know how you would do it, but you get people in the business world or whatever field they wanted, whether it be teenagers, college students, and even adults, that can come and get guidance on, I want to be a graphic designer. How do I get into that world? And you have somebody that's very, you know what I mean? Like I said, I don't know how that would play out, but I like the idea of it. So you're doing it just on a mini scale. Well, not that many.
I mean, yeah, it depends on how it all sort of develops. I mean, so that's what drives me now, and also success is infectious. I mean, it's just the more success you have, the more you want, and it has very little to do with the money at this point. It's more
ideas.
yeah, ideas are a dime a dozen. It's the execution, it's the pushing, it's creating. I mean, it's really cool that, you know, despite what happens to me now, that I'm pretty confident that within 50, 100 years, there will be a company, you know, that's called SCOTTeVEST that has some relation to what I started.
Right.
That's cool. Pretty cool. But that, you know, that legacy, the legacy of Liz, and you know, you're older. You know, this is early in the. If you and I are co-writing our fifth book together, and you're, you know, that's cool.
Yeah, even one great one.
Yeah.
I mean,
I don't need five, but
no, but I know what you mean. Yeah, it's just that accomplishment.
So.
Okay.
Showing the mean kids in high school, no, but
Okay.
I mean, it is. I do have some ego that, in the back of my mind, you know, I went to a pretty competitive high school, lots of smart kids. To be that guy, to be, you know, invited back to, you know, and Scott is, you know, who wouldn't, you know?
Oh, sure, yeah.
So
yeah, you're not the loser in the class.
You know, and I wasn't at the last, you know, our 20-year class reunion. I'm looking forward to our 30-year, you know, so. Okay, so are there...
the interesting events and defining moments, I think those are things you're going to have to just maybe make a list of, and then we'll talk about, you know, just
but
at
the
some
interesting
point.
events, God, that's just so
You have
hard. I mean, I think you're going to have to interview me and
Okay.
pull it
Just-
out.
we'll
I
just
mean,
do it.
because,
Okay.
like, you know, when I look at this picture, it wouldn't have occurred to me that was an interesting event. I mean,
And do you want to talk about it now?
if now's the appropriate time, I mean, you know.
Well, it depends if we want to go through the whole sheet and then come back to it, or either way, we're
You
going to get there.
prepared this, so let's just.
Okay.
I
We
mean,
are-
I interesting events, personal, professional. I mean, you know, when my mother was diagnosed with ALS, and upon her death, and my father's death, when I realized that, you know, once I did apply myself,
That's
you know,
a good
in
one.
law school, at that moment, you know, when I first started getting my grades back, and then, well, if you apply yourself, then you magically, you know, it can have significant impacts. You know, marrying Laura, you know, having a dinner, you know, when we were just dating, and Brad, our mutual friend who sort of set us up at the dinner, the father, with, again, mutual family friends, you know, comes over to us. We're just sitting there eating dinner. This, you know, there must have been 30 people at this birthday party, and he comes over to visit with both of us. And I was just dating Laura like 2-3 months, and he turns to me and he says, "This woman is amazing. If she ever wanted to go into business, I don't care what it is, I would back her 100%. She is the smartest woman." And my first reaction was, "What about me?" You know, I'm trying to play. But you know, it stuck in my head that this is you know, she's phenomenal in business, and seeing that, and it was really, you know, when we first moved here and she started going to business together, you know, it was only out of necessity. She made it very clear to me that she could never work with me, you know, and so I think a defining moment was, you know, being able to find a way to work together. You know, I would have failed. You know, Scott, you know, I would have failed because we would have ordered too many things, and we would have been extended, and I wouldn't have been able to interact. You know, Tom joining us. You know, having someone to believe in me like Tom and put up with me and work remotely and to be our first professional hire. You know, that was defining.
I like that stuff. I really want to start with some personal stuff like the Laura thing, because that touches people, you know, it moves us.
Right.
That's very
It's emotional, it's true.
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
You know, and so, you know, we can build on that as need be, you know, and you know, HAP's involvement to a lesser degree. So that, I mean, there were just lots of those, you know, being in the shrink's office, that defining moment, getting the call from Hammaker, you know, at that moment, that was defining. I mean, going to a men's group meeting, a men's weekend, and learning about how fucked up my father was, and that it wasn't me, and when he died. I mean, there's so many defining moments. It's hard to start with, to find where to start.
But we've got a couple of good ones.
What do you think other people find? We've talked about that.
Yeah.
I need your help on that. What are the forces that have shaped you?
We've talked about that.
Okay. What insight have we gained?
Well, the applying yourself.
Yeah.
Oh, look what happens.
Yeah, magically. Yeah. And now it's almost freaky because now there are some things I'm scared to try because I feel like everything I've tried, I'm on a streak, and I don't like. And it's even stupid,
That's awesome.
And it's dumb because we couldn't get our YouTube account was tied to my old email, and I turned to Frank, who worked here previously, and Tom. I'm like, you just get it to change to my new email because it's just a minor thing. And what we've tried, I said, come on, please. I didn't want, because I really thought that minor task, if I tried, I would fail at it. So because it's out of my control. So I put all these other people on, and they all failed. And I said, oh, fuck. And I did it, and I just.
And you made it happen?
I made it happen. It's stupid. So like Shark Tank. How many people try to get on Shark Tank? And, and 100, they fail.
Yeah.
Everything I have tried to do and really wanted and really put, I have achieved. And it's kind of a scary.
Yeah, I get that. I mean, it's super awesome and wonderful, but at the same time, it's like you're on this tightrope and you don't want to fall. So you're like, okay, be careful what you choose because I want to keep.
And if you want to look back at how did I do it? Well, look at the email. I'm persistent, and that's the persistence is just a theme. I'm persistent with you. Send me your and that's and ultimately it could have been my downfall because there's some things you should let go of.
Right.
And I'm learning how to do that. But so I don't know. And I've learned how to relax a little bit. So, and that Gmail thing, it sounds just stupid. Tom described me, and this is really, when we hired the president, Chavs, you might have heard his name, and he didn't work out, and that was the defining moment for me when I had the balls to hire someone at that level, recognize that I needed help and relinquish control, and then the balls to realize that he was not good and I should fire him quickly and get rid of him and bring Scott in, and that was defining. That was me becoming a CEO for the first time. Before that, I was just this mad entrepreneur, and I learned that listen, I made a decision. It was a wrong decision. A lot of other companies would have let it play out for 6-8 months, and I just saw the path it was going. But Tom's described. We were all sitting there that night. It was a very defining weekend. You can only imagine. And we all tried to decide what each of us did best, Laura, Tom, and me. And Tom has a couple of key phrases, and the best come from Tom, and I would suggest that you take an hour to interview Tom at some point. Number one, he says that when I wake up in the morning, I don't walk, I don't crawl, I sprint. It's just everything about me. It's just you push a button and it's one speed. And it's true. So that's number one. And number two, both Lauren have said this, that I get stuff done. I forgot what this is. I make things happen. Laura and Tom get stuff done, but I make things happen. And Tom, I by no means believe this. This is pure hyperbole. Okay, and it'll sound this way, and you'll have to ask Tom what he means by this. But he said this, and it was probably one of the nicest things anyone said about me. He says, Scott, if you were tasked with the job of solving cancer, and you had the budget to do it, I have no doubt in my mind that you would just do it. Cancer would be solved. It was so powerful to hear that. But when you hear someone say that, and you think that I took.
Yeah, too bad you're not.
I took this ugly freaking vest as a prototype, and I said, I'm going to turn it into what it is now and beyond. And that is ugly. I mean, who would have thought that you could have created a business that we've created out of that, and a licensing and a patent to have North Face and other patent licenses. It's just, and the story about the patent. There's a whole internal story about just the whole patent story is remarkable,
Okay.
and that might be a chapter. How did it happen? How did how many law firms I went through? How I hate lawyers. It's all stupid. So to hear someone say that I can, the Google thing. Most people would give up. They're like, all right, I guess I have to just sign in with this. And like if someone explained to me their business plan, like AdRoll, which is our retargeting ads that are on all the other websites. They explained to me how it works, and I'm like, no, here's a better way. And Tom's like, you can't tell people how to run their business. Sure enough, they liked my way better. They came up with a special deal just to work with me, and they're utilizing my way to, with all their other clients now. So if I really believe that that's true, and in my heart, if someone said, and maybe that's what's next. Maybe I think, curing cancer. Not that I have the smarts, but I'd hire the scientists and I'd push people hard enough to do it. I'd put the pieces.
Place. Right.
Tom, what did you say? Oh, okay. Right now you're talking.
Yeah.
You're gonna have to explain to me about me solving cancer, or your comment, or what that means to you. So it's just, and that's what's, I just can make things happen that otherwise wouldn't. Like Scott, he never had the experience to do what he's doing now. With all due respect to Scott, I'm pushing him to do more, and maybe interview Scott separately, and don't tell him I said that, but but like putting NetSuite together. Other companies spend 6 months, and we're going to do it in 6 weeks because it can be done. You break it down,
Right, just like you're breaking down, like, okay, the videos. To
Yeah,
get
but-
the product I want, what's it going to take? And then once you find out, then is it worth it?
Yes.
I mean, it's just methodical and creative at the same time.
So. Can you see unifying?
Yeah.
I mean, that's gonna be up to
With
you to
the-
sort of pull.
yeah, I agree. And then I also, you had already talked about the articles, or you had letters. I don't know if we need those at this point, but if there are articles and videos that you want that correspond to your defining moments, it just as
Well,
they
in the
come
Time
up.
magazine article that that you read the story about, and then they didn't even put the URL in, and I had a full, I was ready to have a banks of.
So, and I can try to do a little research on that too, but it's just nice. I mean, if you already know it, just send me.
Another thing to play with is my dogs. I mean, one of the.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
A book I was going to write. There's so many ideas, and that's why I've been scared to write the book too, because I want it to be a bestseller. That you can see why if we start to do this.
Yeah.
Where I've done on everything else. You're going to be a co-author of a bestseller.
Yeah. How awesome would that be?
if which just for clarity, and maybe you should put this in a piece of paper, but I don't mind giving you a byline, but you're not getting any of the proceeds of the book.
Right, because I'm being paid.
Yeah,
to
exactly.
write it. Yeah.
Okay, just for clarity.
Yeah. Now, how about this though? As business goes, like, say for some reason, however long it takes to play out, we decide, Timmy, you're just not, you don't see what I want, or you're not able to create it. Do I still get to keep the rest of my job?
The non-book, yeah. If you're doing it well,
Right,
absolutely.
I mean, I'm not thinking I'm gonna fail, but
No.
But
I'm thinking
just
there's
curious.
a 50-50 chance. I mean,
Well,
you've seen how many
yeah.
other people have tried, and
Yeah.
it's something we'll try a few times, and if
we'll
we're just
see. We'll
if
know.
it's not,
Yeah,
you
okay.
were not hired to be my writer,
Right.
but
right.
it's because I think it's something that you would aspire to being
Absolutely,
a
yeah.
So, So think about it. So the poodles, one thought of a book, and this could be a separate book or characters in this book, is the separate book was have the story of my entire life told through the eyes of my poodles. I've had poodles ever since I was growing up, and there have been some gaps in there, and we could say, all right, you missed years 6 through 8 because there were no poodles here. Well, welcome to year 8. I don't know. Or you can have them as characters in. Kelly was the first one. She sat on my lap while I brought her to the office every day to have a picture. I don't know if you want to. If
I
there's
think
like
I'd like to maybe
writing
have that
tool.
be part of the book because I do. It is nice that you love animals and that your dogs are a part of your life, and people love. I mean, I love animals. So.
I don't know if it's confusing to all
Right.
3 of them. Maybe you just pick Lucy, and Lucy's
token.
a carry the token speaking poodle. Like this guy's just crazy, or
Yeah.
I don't know.
So I'm thinking I'm going to start with going with the sort of emotional, relatable person with Laura. Going with that first. That's where I'm going to start, if that's okay.
Yeah.
And then we'll see how that goes, and we'll build from there if we like that beginning.
Okay.
Okay. So.
It gives a backdrop, and
Yeah.
One second. Just keep it on. I'll take her back out. She ate a ton of grass and her stomach was growling, but she hasn't done anything.
Okay.
So I guess I'm letting the grass take effect, but it's hard for me to keep watching to see if she goes to the door.
Okay, I will. Thank you, Laura.
Yeah. So that's what I'm thinking, and I think.
Sort of like introducing me and define me. Let me to any articles. I mean, that's just massive.
Okay.
The videos. I mean, that might
So-
be like we sit and just like go through my photo album together and
yeah.
just sort of.
And do you have like a collection of articles and things like that on you, or are they just online?
They're online. It's not really.
It's not the old-fashioned scrapbooking thing.
No, but I mean there is actually over there, but a bunch of articles and that I want to hang and that. So if I have any diaries, personal notes, letters, I'm willing to share.
You already told me that.
Yeah, back and forth between my father. I also have what I wrote after that men's weekend. Sort of, but that's in that collection. So.
Okay.
So if you want to now just look back at this picture at this point and just.
Yes. You want to tell me?
So this was the very first version of the very first version of the vest. It must have been circa January 2001, maybe February, and. I was taking pictures for the website, I think. I mean, that's like version 1. It didn't even have logos to it. Someone had told me that I wouldn't be a very good model, and therefore, I should hire someone else. So for subsequent, for year, we hired a model, and it might have been one of the biggest mistakes we ever made because I think to relate to me has helped the business immensely. I didn't learn how to smile there. I look kind of crazy.
I don't think so. I think you look cute
Uh,
because you have that little sparkle, and you always have that. And that I think that is just part of. And I'm not just saying that.
No,
that.
I
Yeah.
know. This is before Bluetooth, so I'm using a flip Motorola phone, for my headset. That's where I thought the real value in the personal area network was. This was before iPhones were and iPods. This was when CD players were around.
Oh wow.
This is when you had cell phones were just they were around, but and they were concerned about cancer and the headsets and what so. I was working with this insane designer. Her name was Susie Kruger. And I would go through meetings with her, and I pushed her hard to get it done quickly. I mean, we the idea actually came to me in November 2000 and met first with the designer in December of 2000 with my mother-in-law of all people, Diana, because I thought she had experience selling clothing and that she would be helpful. She was not. That stopped recording, by the way.
Okay, I'll make sure I
I don't know if
Must
we
be
ran
out.
out of space or. So if we're gonna do this, then,
I'll make sure I take it.
I mean, this is still recording apparently, so. And if this works, we can do it there. So I mean, I just, you know, maybe ask me some questions.
Do you remember? I'm like right at that point in time. What were you thinking as far as were you still not? Were you convinced that it was going to do well?
I was convinced from the very first moment, maybe because the alternative was just so scary. I mean, I just, you know, I had no doubt that that was the best invention in the world at that moment. That I was going to be here where we are now in terms of sales and everything else and people. If anything, I thought it would have happened much quicker because I don't have the patience. You know, if someone would have told me it would take this long to get here, I never would have done it. I mean, I just, you know, I need things, I need an immediacy to it all.
Yes.
And I push others to get that. So in a perfect world, it's probably if I learned how to push just less to get to reality. But you know, what's it's proven to me is that you push hard and you push constructively. You're going to. What I want is it to be here, but you know, it takes this much pushing just to get to here. Or
Yeah.
in a time frame. So,
Yeah, that's interesting.
So. No one in this world, I believe, could have taken that best, and been here in this time. And without any outside money, we mortgaged our house for the first order. I ordered 3,000 of those of version 1.0. And I, didn't even know what I was going to sell them for. And then I'll never forget when 9/11 hit. That's a defining event because how that changed my perception and slowed things down. So.
What was so did these sell?
Yeah.
You sold them all?
Yes, we did, in large part because of an article in Parade magazine.
And how'd you get that?
I am a PR master. I spent just as much time on PR as I did anything else.
Did you just kind of learn it yourself? You just
Yeah, I mean, it's just sales. It's just, I would send out emails. I'd buy lists of people, and I'd go look at magazines that I want to be in, and I'd buy a list of media, and I would just blast it out. And you can go back historically and look at the emails from the beginning of time that I blasted out.
It'd be good.
Just
The
say,
early ones would be good.
Just to see what and I would be, I'd exaggerate, and just embellish, but also what the things you're gonna learn about me. I'm truthful, so honest. I don't have the ability to sell and exaggerate, but I can't lie.
Yeah,
and that
sucks, doesn't it?
It does suck. I mean, I just
It's
just
like
I am complete transparent. So, but I've learned to use it to my advantage. So, and, people have to understand that about me. I'm authentic, and maybe that's part of the theme. Is just,
I agree.
I think.
Well, and it makes. I mean, there are so few people that have integrity, and that I think that's an important part of your personality that needs to be in the book. You know what I mean? Because that's a big deal, and I like the idea that you're teaching people that it's important, because I don't think there's enough of that.
Yeah, and I hope that, and I'd like here to have that come through, not just individually. I want people to understand that as a company value.
Okay,
the integrity is critically important. When Laura and I give the speech, you got it. That how important it is, but and you just white lie. That's why I'm not talking to my older sister, who I love and adore. I don't think she has any integrity. She lies about stupid shit, and if you're gonna lie about stupid shit, you're gonna lie about big stuff, and I don't want those people in my life.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. That's rough.
so I don't know if you have enough to go on.
Oh yeah, I do. I want to start just trying to see if I can get like that little kind of prologue that and then an introductory chapter and see. I think there's definitely there's enough to. I mean, it's going to be. I think we can make it interesting.
Okay.
And hopefully.
See, I think once we land on a real theme, a real story, writing this is going to be easy.
The story is the hard part. So I'm just going to start with kind of the characters and developing, wanting to read this book.
Yeah.
And see. We'll start there, and then we can kind of see where we want to go from there. And having this, and then next time I talk to you, hopefully we'll be building on that, and I'll be able to. Usually, what I do is like I'll take the information in, I'll start spewing it out in bad drafts and stuff, and then stuff like if I'm walking somewhere, stuff just starts coming to me, and things will start coming together, and it just kind of like has to stew around in there.
I'd encourage you as sort of background research, and if you need to do this on or off the clock or whatever, just buy some best-selling biographies and seeing what it is that ties that. Watch AMC or whatever CNBC
I like those.
biography.
Yeah.
Watch. This is bizarre. Do you watch Curb Your Enthusiasm?
I do.
Okay.
I mean, not regularly, but
All
I
right,
used to.
but,
But I like it.
It's the things. I am a better version of Larry David.
Okay.
I'm sarcastic. I'm smart. Jewish. I'm witty. I tell people what comes out of my mouth, sometimes good or bad. But I have more filter than he does. I think if you build some of that humor, like, did he just tell that? I say and do things that most people would want to do and just don't have. It's not the balls. It's just that most people have better sense, or and I don't know how to describe that.
Yeah,
it's
that's
just
interesting. It's confidence, or just like, or do you even
oblivious.
think about it?
It's
Yeah,
just,
you don't even think about it.
Yeah. It's not like I've got this ego. It's just like I think who else would walk around and start rolling down their window, seeing anyone with a poodle, and saying, "We're having a poodle." I mean, it's just it's just that it just comes naturally to me. I don't even know how else to do it, and to bring that that bits of Larry's personality and and it'll inform a lot of things.
Okay.
So watch an episode.
I'll watch that, and I'll start thinking about just getting into the book, and then I think maybe once we, and also probably trying to get an outline. I'll read some biographies, and like I said, I've been looking at some people that are inspirational speakers, their books, and they're good. So I might look at the not necessarily the frou-frou stuff, but the format, how they start. How they do that, and maybe we can do, so I'll look at that and see if you like those ideas too.
And there were a number of stories that we actually did video, that, let's see. I mean,
sellouts. You know what? Who is the sellout? Is it the person?
So, I mean, this will take me a while to find, but I mean, you should know that I went through a series of interviews with Stacy, who wrote, and we did it live stream. So you might want to just.
That'd be great. It might save you a lot of time too.
Yeah, so I don't know where they are. My videos. So I mean, there's a.
So
I mean,
from
there's
here,
a-
when we have all this, would you prefer that I come in and talk to you? I mean, I want to talk to you anyway once a week, about what I have and where we're going. But as far as the interviewing and stuff, do you want me to just start with this? Maybe do
It's a
both?
lot of material. I mean, it
Okay.
may be helpful for you to. I just want to see it. Oh, this is hilarious. This is Scott. Scott and the not Scott. Not Scott studying at 10. And, oh God. I just lost that. But I mean, you may want to. I mean, there's a lot of just a ton of material. If you look by the number of views, you can see which ones might be, more significant. But I mean, this will take
So
you an
this is
hour.
public? Like anybody can watch this?
I'm not sure. Some of these were more
Oh, they say
private.
public.
Yeah. So I mean. And I did a lot of this thinking that someday, someone's going to find me interesting enough to. Who else would run their day like this? I mean, this is bizarre. I mean, this had 10 views. For 11 views. There were a lot more people watching live. But, it's hard for me to look at an image and figure out
What went on that day?
Yeah.
So
But I mean,
these
there are a lot of
the
the.
SCOTTeVEST kind of cam.
Yeah, Scott Cam.
Yeah, and then, but at the top, did you have interviews with the Stacy?
Yeah, somewhere in here, I'd have to go by dates.
Okay, so that would be good for me to have.
Yeah,
So is that something you're gonna send me?
I
or
don't know.
should I search
You're gonna
for
have to tell me when you want that. And we're
Okay.
gonna have to sit here and
it? Okay.
and we're gonna have to go. I mean, you're gonna have to click on one or two and try to find them. They're not gonna be easy.
Okay.
I mean,
I have 2 new samples when you have this.
okay. So, I mean, like this is like we had a tweet up in San Francisco, and I didn't even know what a tweet up was. So we organized it, and no one showed up for it. So I think I was actually stoned during this. In San Francisco with Scott. I don't know why there's no sound.
I'm not sure you're not sure what's going to happen. It will,
Or drunk.
it will be,
after
and that's all I can tell you right now.
a while. So yeah, I mean,
You have no idea.
so we're sitting outside in San
Can I check my
Francisco.
email for a second? Do you mind?
And trying to.
Is there?
I mean, some of them are, you gotta dig deep, and maybe it's just, who would do this? I mean, but there are interviews, I don't know how you find them, other than by date, Like, some of these are just me working.
Hey, Kristen.
Oh,
Hi.
that's a meeting with Kristen, my
Um,
designer, whatever. I mean, I'll find. I mean, the best of all worlds, we'd have someone that we'd hire, that you'd hire and supervise and say, listen, I need you to watch all these, and pay them $10 an hour, and tell under confidentiality, and tell me when things are good, or stamp them, or categorize them. I mean, at some point or another, we have to do that
Okay.
eventually. So if that's something that you think would be helpful, so
I do think that would be. I mean, more than likely, there's going to be some good stuff in there,
yeah,
right?
yeah. So again, it's there's a lot of a lot of
And
things.
this site is Stickum, and that's
I'm gonna have to give you credentials, and I mean, I don't want you to start here. I just
right.
want you to know that.
Know that that's there,
And there's, you know, and there's a lot of other sources too. This is just raw.
Nothing to do with your stuff, but I've got some very specific questions, and we're ready to get down to business on this. So, if we can get these questions answered, I don't see any reason why we can't get this thing signed up and implemented early next week. So,
Okay, great. I'm expecting my revision to be approved within the next hour or two.
okay. You'll forgive me, given the hairiness of my day. I'm gonna just, and if you could take fairly good notes, and I'll
Yeah, I feel sorry for someone, but I mean, you want to.
Well, I mean, it's an easy job. I mean, you know what I mean. I mean, it's
Like this, there was a green screen that we actually shot a commercial, and we did it, via using technology. Someone else was directing us.
About this issue or anything else,
What is that?
is an issue that really is going to cause. We contemplated removing off
This
all
is
the time at some point, and people just love that product. Decided to move on,
but it's good to know that's there. It's possible.
And then
that
we'll be
they're
able to dig
resourced.
some
Yeah.
stuff up, but I
Okay,
think just
cool.
almost for your purposes, just knowing that, who would 3 years ago say I'm gonna just start recording all of my, my, and then to recognize it was a waste of time and I stopped, and I guess I
But you
did fail
took the
there.
good from you didn't because you took the good part of it and you're creating these and you know what I mean.
Right?
So
Yeah, it's an
that's
evolution.
not
No,
yeah.
you're
It's
right.
not a failure. It's an evolution, and you're getting closer to the target.
So let me show you, because I'd like you to handle this moving forward.